Okay, the 13th of September 2015, London, and today I'm talking with Olena. Hello, Olena.
Hello, Conrad.
How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Good. So, Olena, you come from Ukraine.
I came from Ukraine in 2008, which is what now? 8 years ago. Oh my God, 8 years ago. Yes, 8 years ago. It was very hard. I wanted it very, very, very much. Only plan A, no plan B. I wanted it so much that I didn't even consider that it wouldn't work. It was just, of course I will go to London.
I think 2005 or 2004, the European Union expanded and Poland was included, Czech Republic and Slovakia and so on and so forth. But Ukraine wasn't. So
No, it wasn't.
it must have been a real hassle to organize everything and to be able to come to the UK.
Yes, the papers were a nightmare. It was UK government program. It was migration program, HSMPS. It existed until 5 years ago, probably, and then they closed it. So it existed only for a particular amount of time, and it was created to attract young professionals in London. So in order to go through the whole process, you needed to be young age, speaking English, and earn a lot. So that's how they would see that you are prepared to live in the UK because you speak, you are professional enough because you earn money, and you have a particular education also. So it's only higher education. And I applied, and I won like one of the places. So that's how I came.
And how did you feel? I bet it's like 8 years or 9 years ago. You might not remember. How did it feel to?
Oh my God, it felt amazing. It felt amazing. Everything was only about going to London. So I remember that time. Everything was only about that. I quit my job, not quit. I left one job, started another, just because it would be better for a project, for a program. And it was London on my desktop, on my machine. I was to prepare myself to pass English exam for the program. I made lots of friends on Skype just to talk, just to practice language. That was quite hard, but very interesting. Good time.
So a lot changed within 1 year. How your life do you think would look if you didn't take part in this highly skilled?
Stayed in Ukraine. If I stayed in Ukraine, I have no idea. It would be completely different. I would be married probably, have a child or two, be a graphic designer, suffering all this conflict in Ukraine, which is there now. I have no idea. It would be interesting. Yes, of course, it would be another life, happy life, hopefully. But I'm incredibly glad that it didn't happen. It was that hard, but I would do it again if I had to.
You are lucky enough to be here, and it must feel. How does it feel for you to be here in the safe place where you can grow as an artist?
It feels very weird. It feels very strange. On one hand, I constantly realize that I am grateful to myself that I made this decision to come here, and my family back home are very happy that I am here safe and do something else rather than worry about my future back home. And even people who are just close, who just know me, I think they take it as an inspiration for them also. It's sad, it's actually quite sad, because on one hand it's quite selfish to even consider that, to leave your country because it's in that state, and to concentrate on your own life, while so many people, close people, are there, and it's that for them. So they haven't escaped, they haven't left the country as I did. But strange, Conrad. It's a strange feeling. It's like I'm happy for myself. I'm happy for my future children if I ever consider to have some. But at the same time, it's still there. It exists. It's still one world. So the conflict is still there, and it also feels very different from outside than it is inside. We have my family. They don't touch the conflict. They are not involved into all these forces, but at the same time they are inside there, and they are constantly under all this informational pressure from both sides, from Ukraine and from Russia. So it's but I see it from the outside, and again I see it from European point of view because we are here.
I bet it must have felt surreal that you were here, as you said, acquiring this European point of view on everything, developing as an artist, about which we'll talk about later. And at the same time, you hear through media, Western media, what's going on in your home country. You were probably not, when you were leaving Ukraine, you had no clue that this would ever happen.
Not ever thought that would happen.
Nobody did.
Not ever even thought that would happen, even when it started. It was total shock. It was surprise. No one would consider that to happen. I still can't quite get my head around it, that it is for real. It's very strange. It's like we have families in Russia. I have family in Ukraine, but part of my family is in Russia still. So how is that possible? That these two countries that have families in both countries can be against each other. But on the other hand, we did develop in slightly different ways, and this European conflict is quite a conflict, and for me especially living here now, I can totally realize how different the values are from what we were grown up in, like Soviet times and all. But still, they are honorable things to value. We were grown up as decent children. We were taught very decent goods and bads. So we learned as very decent human beings. But here, the culture is different. It's different. It's like there are values as honorable, but they are different. It's pretty much like comparing religions or comparing cultures. They are not worse or better. They're just different. So to choose a path is a very big thing for a country, and I think for me, that's where the root of the conflict is. And I do realize and I do see, and that's how I turned my life to be. Developing into this direction, into European values, to be respectful, to be developing your personality, to be personal, to be open, free, fair, in opposite to the values that we had during Soviet times, which were as honorable but completely different. It was more about community. It was, well, you say like a pure communism, it's quite a cheesy thing to say. It was a very honorable idea, but it was completely different. It was the whole essence of value for each one was the community, to develop the society rather than individual. So it's very different. And
now when we look at this conflict, we are looking at it from the Western point of view. And do you think that we are sometimes too quick to judge? That, let's say, I don't know, Ukraine should join the European Union, Russia should separate and move away from Ukraine. But when we look deeper, we sometimes read that people in Ukraine are sometimes confused as well which side they want to take. It's not that black and white sometimes.
It's not that black and white at all. There are still people. It is true. There are people who do see that as the most of their existence, as the most of their culture, see Russian culture and the past and all the history that we had together as the most important thing, which is important. It is important. Our culture, all our past, all that we grown up on was Russian culture, mostly Russian culture. But then, since the whole Soviet Union stopped existing in 1991, we just can't ignore these 20 years. 20 years is a huge amount of time, and countries did develop differently, no matter whether it was a conspiracy against Russia or against Soviet Union, or someone did influence this collapse, USSR collapsing. It doesn't matter. That's how it happened, and it did develop separately, so it can't be ignored. People did develop separately. The saddest thing is that just simple people like me, my family, our friends do have to suffer because of that. There are ways to solve the conflicts. There are ways like my personal story was developing exactly the same time as the conflict between countries. I was living here with my husband, and we decided to separate. And for some reason, we, two people being close to each other and obviously causing lots of pain to each other by this decision, we still managed to be human to each other, not to fight, and to support each other. Life as when men and women who could have an excuse to fight, but countries, there is so much more than just egos. There is so much more stories, valuable things to consider rather than just start fighting. So how could two countries being ruled of adult people start fighting instead of solving that? I still can't quite consider it. I'm a young person, I'm only 33. There are adult people who rule the countries, there are governments who sit at their serious desks, make their serious decisions. How that could be accepted that the conflict started? How? That is strange. That is
and they
really
have
strange.
families as well. It's not like they are, I don't know, some alienated units living in a remote place.
Exactly.
They also grew up as children. They played with their friends. They traveled. Yes, I understand that this is so difficult to comprehend. And talking about families, how does it work with you and your family? Can you come and meet them?
Yes.
Ukraine?
It was a little bit. It was this couple of moments, couple of holidays of being aware. Okay, I'm going home. So it means that I'm going home through Ukraine, through Kiev airport, which can be dangerous, and there can be terrorist attacks and things like that. But first, you kind of carelessly think about it, especially from here, because, well, it's home, everything should be alright, and it's only on TV that is so harsh and bloody and dangerous. But in real life, it's never that scary. It's always scarier on TV. And on the other hand, that was a careless argument to go home. And another one was, it's a kind of, if I stay here and we don't go, it means that bad guys win. It means that those who start the conflict, they actually win, because people are scared, people do change their plans because of what they started.
Yeah.
making. So yes.
So in the end, what did you decide?
I did go. Of course, I did go. Of course. Well, I had to go.
And
I
how
did
was
go.
it?
It was.
Was it different to any other
Yes,
visit?
yes, it was different. I could feel people were talking about it. They were either talking about it or they avoided the subject because it was too sensitive for them. So it was very sensitive feeling in the country.
And your family, you said they are not involved in this conflict. How do they feel? Do they feel scared?
They're just normal people. They now try not to watch TV that much, not to be that scared about all and upset about all that. But now I think the biggest worry is the future. The biggest worry is finance because economy is in a horrible state and it's just hard, it's expensive to live back home. I was back home last summer and it was very expensive. I thought, okay, I will go to Ukraine. I live here, work here, I earn UK pounds. I will go back home and feel like a queen because Ukrainian hryvnia is going really, really down. But it wasn't like that. Everything was very, very expensive, even though people had the same salaries and the same incomes, but it was still incredibly expensive. So it is quite
When
hard.
will it end?
It's so strange that it's 21st century. We think that we developed, but that happened again. Almost like we haven't learned the history, almost like we just ignored what just happened 50 years ago.
And that is the most frustrating thing, that even though all of us, we went like the whole family, we went through those wars here and there, it still keeps on happening, and we don't seem to be learning much. I want to tell you what happened yesterday. I went to this march to support refugees, to accept refugees in UK.
Syria.
Yes, Syrian refugees. And the march started in Marble Arch, and we were walking. It was like so many people. We were walking towards. We were passing the Downing Street, and we walked towards Big Ben. And it was a very, I think, a very good cause, and I am for accepting refugees. And I saw those banners that people were carrying, and it was, there is no human being that is illegal, which I find very strong, and I agree with that. And with my
UK in its best, isn't it?
it's fantastic.
It is true.
It's so open-minded. There were no problems, no conflicts. Everybody was smiling. Everything was just peaceful, beautiful, and everybody joined in this good cause. But with my friend, we stopped because we were very thirsty, and we went to the shop to buy some water. As we went out, standing, had some water, we saw a very elegant lady in her 50s, late 50s, I would say, white, elegant. She was standing with the police and she was chatting with them. She smiled at them and she said, I'm certainly not one of them, pointing at the people marching for accepting the refugees, and she said, oh, good old David. And I think she was referring to David Cameron. So this elegant, white, probably a Londoner lady, she said, I'm certainly not one of them. And that made me and my friend think, people still, I know the politicians do separate themselves from the rest of the world, like countries from country A to country B. But this woman is saying, we are we, I am on this side, and I'm not them. Them as probably someone worse, some underclass, or someone who needs help, someone who's fragile, and I don't have time for that. And that's very sad, isn't it? It's not aggressive, but that made me think that, yeah, we still haven't learned. And she's certainly not one of them because she hasn't learned. But Why do people have to constantly prove themselves that they're better so many times?
It's yes, it is an eternal question, isn't it? That's what actually I was talking to Lov this morning. I was listening to a TED talk. One of political consultant was making a very massive, really wide-scale project on how much value each country brings to the world.
Oh wow!
It was a research about, he even ended up with a like an index of each country bringing something for the whole world. And he said that strangely enough, every politician, every government is interested in rating their countries the highest, because that will bring tourism, that will bring investment, that will make the whole image of the country more positive.
And it's all about money.
And it's all about money, and it will bring money in the country, definitely, this image. But at the same time, every decision governments make, they are mostly selfish. They are mostly not selfish. It's country internal decisions, not world-scale decisions. But on a large scale, we all suffer. When banks collapsed in America, the whole Europe suffered through crisis. So we are linked. It's global economy. That's it. We are linked to each other now, and we still think internally rather than externally. It was very, very interesting.
That's amazing.
And it was very, very interesting concept. Like and as human beings, we do the same as this lady, as you just mentioned. She lives in London, she brings up her children in London, but how can you separate your existence from next street? Exactly. They still walk the same street, they still breathe the same air. How can you? Yes, it's very strange.
Yes, I think it's I don't want to sound judgmental, but I can help myself, and I'll call it very stupid, because I bet she goes to the doctor, I bet she goes to the dentist, I bet she goes to the lawyer or the post office or the bank, anywhere, and she has to deal with someone who is not from her league, who's from the outside, and she still needs help from them.
Mm-hmm. It's strange.
So why
it
doesn't
puts her
she
in
show
a very
herself
strange,
a better
strange
person
position.
and help someone else who's asking for help? I think that's as I say, I try not to be judgmental, but here I say that
it's immature, even, isn't it? Like almost hiding your hand in sand, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, strange.
And that made me think again about this interview that we have today and about freedom, artist freedom. And I read that in Ukraine in the, was it 80s or 90s, that there was this glasnost movement.
Oh my God, you are amazing, aren't you? Wow.
No.
Yes, glasnost movement.
It was about, they wanted, after the communists, so that must have been 90s, they wanted to, the artists felt the urge to be able to express, to have this freedom to express whatever and however they wanted. Do you think that art should be free?
Yes, definitely. With that time back in USA, when this glasnost movement started, it was not only artists, it was the whole society, it was media. That was mostly the glasnost. It was media, so everyone, journalists, started speaking what they wanted. But that's what the most important with complete freedom is a high level of moral values, I think, because if you think that you are responsible for what you express, then you can consider what you actually want to say. Like, it's again, it's entire question of freedom, where freedom starts and where it stops. When you want to express yourself, to what degree you want to express yourself, so that you don't touch someone else's freedom, so that you are delicate about other people's feelings. So it's sensitive subject, which again I find it's different. You either need to regulate it with someone who is incredibly clever and wise person, like a parent. That's when we as children are not free to do whatever we want because we can damage ourselves or the world around us. Or when we grow up to the level when we are responsible for ourselves, that's when, if we are not given freedom, we suppress, we don't develop anymore, we don't step above our own heads. It's a very interesting thing to experience.
It's very interesting. And if we talk about your freedom of expression as an artist, how free do you feel? And could you feel any freer?
Yes, I feel free, but it's not only political question. I think it's not. It doesn't always depend on where. With me, for example, I did go through my personal experiences to reach the level when I feel confident enough to express what I want and to not be afraid to show that. I think that was actually part of the most interesting and the most pleasant experiences on Thursday, on the opening, because I realized that even though being incredibly worried who is going to show up, how they're going to like or not like my work, I was actually quite confident because I wasn't afraid anymore of showing what I felt and how I felt it. Like, well, that's me. I can't, if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I can't help it. That was what I felt. So, what can I do to that? That was it. That was freedom, probably.
Track of thoughts, can we say that there are two types of freedoms? I know that people talk about different freedoms, but there is this internal freedom for an artist to break the interior cage.
I think so. It's
and
a very good
the
way.
External one, where there is politics, there is.
I think it's a very good way to express it. Yes, I never thought about it. You're exactly right. I think so.
So
that is exactly
broke through the barrier first inside of you.
Yes.
Whatever you or painted, whatever you felt like expressing. And here you don't need to worry about anyone coming to your gallery and saying you need to take that down.
You can't. Yes, exactly. Yes, it's a very nice way to describe it. I think it's very truth. And probably these two elements can actually influence each other, because if I knew that someone is going to judge me and is going to actually prohibit my work, then probably I wouldn't allow myself to be that free also, because I would know that I would be judged.
In your art, after a while, looking at your pieces in the gallery, I noticed, and I think a lot of people noticed, those little, and they were talking about it, everybody was, the little pictographs of penis everywhere. And they are very subtle, very delicate, and they actually look beautiful in the piece. It's not like it's in your face, it's subtle, it gives this regular pattern, calmness to the picture, and some touch of texture, maybe. And could you explain, I know you didn't explain it to me, but it's so interesting, could you explain the meaning?
I'm not sure that I will be able to explain it as good as I did on Thursday. It's coffee, not Prosecco, Conrad. I think it was a joke. It was mostly just a joke, even for myself, about myself. And again, it was a test like an exercise for myself. Okay, whether you, Elena, are going to do it or not. Shall we try? Shall we not? Okay, let's try. What if that person will come to the exhibition? Ooh, what they will think about it? And it's kind of interesting. You kind of play with yourself. I knew that I would be very worried if Gavin's parents would come, for example. What would they say? They haven't even seen me before. But on the other hand, ooh, that would be interesting. Like something, put yourself into a condition that you don't know how you would react to that even. So it was.
It's like bringing up a subject of we cannot say sex, but this genitalia. All of a sudden, in a way, then this is the piece that they are supposed to look at and to give you some feedback. So you kind of say, let's talk about this taboo right now. I bet it must have been very challenging. But the meaning of a penis in your paintings?
For me, it was a joke, honestly. All my paintings started as a joke. I just wanted to open conversation, and I just did that more as a joke, honestly. And that was, I don't know, like, again, what will Agatha say when she will come back home and she will see me cutting out pieces of the plastic? It will be interesting, she will be confused. I don't know, yes.
But I must say that when we were talking at this exhibition, after a glass of Prosecco, you told me that the penis has got this special meaning of excitement, strength, because it's a
obsession. Yes, that's how I treated it, as an obsession. Because what would be an image that expresses the material world of obsession? What that else could it be than that? What else? That's
you
human.
You're an artist. You'll find something.
that's a person. That's love, emotions, feelings, and excitement. Yes, and because of the amount of them in one piece, that can be an obsession also. So yes, I think that was it.
That's very powerful. And then you've got this negative space. How did it come about? This idea of focusing on the negative space in your paintings.
I didn't start with a negative space, but I kind of liked the shape inside rather than outside, the shape of a space rather than the shape of portraits of humans, and that what obviously fascinates the most. Relationship between people, and I kind of like the idea how different the shape can be between two people, and the shape between two people can be so unique, but not only because people are unique, but because they create something between them. It's interesting, it's almost physical. They can influence, we both can influence this space between us, but I can only influence this side and you can only influence that side. We can't change the whole picture, but we can change our side of the view. I don't know what it means, but I think it is interesting. I think what is between people is as live as people themselves, is as powerful, as independent as people themselves. Sometimes, and it's very visible in relationship, whatever relationship are, it's very visible in relationship that sometimes something between us requires something even that you don't want to do, or you want to be different but you just can't because that exists and we can't break it. It does whatever you feel, however you want to change it, to fix it or to break it, you can't because that exists, and that is quite a solid force. So that is interesting. I think that's actually very fascinating. That might be the whole secret of life, that space between people.
And could we call this communication, the space?
We call that yes, we can. Relationship.
Culture, or I don't know. It's true. It's an abstract notion. And what happens next? What's your next step in art?
Ooh. What's next step? What's next step? It's doing more than thinking now. I think the moment I start actually doing something rather than thinking about it, considering, planning, it develops much more. So that I think that will be the next step, probably to do more, to create my paintings, to more paintings, to talk to galleries.
Do you think you would like your paintings to be influenced by Ukrainian culture, the place you come from?
Yes, they do influence because I'm from back home. But I do realize that I'm different from just being Ukrainian anymore. I sucked in lots of other things, and they are quite important as well as being Ukrainian. So that, of course, that will influence. It's like a mosaic, like the whole, like when we were talking about your 12 interviews and lots of other interviews that you are going to take. They are eventually will create the whole picture. I think the same with that. Like being Ukrainian is important thing of personality, but then there are so many other things that are as important.
In my project, it's funny you mentioned that. In my project, I try to focus on the fact as well how we change coming from a different cultural background. How do we change living in the UK, which is so diverse anyway? So theoretically, we shouldn't have a problem keeping our own identity. Nonetheless, we change. And you said that you sucked those pieces of the English culture, or call it cosmopolitan culture. To what extent are you still a Ukrainian person? Or to what extent are you a cosmopolitan person?
I think I'll be very ambitious, and I will say that I am, because of realizing and appreciating this difference, I think it's now more. In a certain extent, it's more because I can compare, because I can see the difference, which I didn't see before. I had no idea how different my culture is to here or to other cultures, which, as you said, being here, such a cosmopolitan place, we do experience all the time. But on the other hand, it's less because I completely lost these 7 years back home, and all I know, all I can base my opinion is just what I hear from my friends, which is not life itself. It's tiny parts of their lives, my relatives, my friends, which are still close, but it's not big part of life anymore. No, I can't really say that it's far away. It's no matter how close we are emotionally and how much we love each other, but it's very far away. So I do grow myself in this culture, and I do miss what's happened there. So in one way, I do feel that I understand myself and my culture more, because I look at that from a different point of view now. But on the other hand, I now look, that point of view is now quite far from the back home. So it's, again, either or. You can't have all. Very interesting.
And do you think you still change, or this process of changing, of assimilating, or however you want to call it, it stops after, let's say, 5-10 years, and then you're just either English or either Ukrainian, or do you think it develops?
I think it does develop. What do you think?
I think it develops. In my point of view, it develops, and I must say that when I first moved to England, I I loved this culture so much and I was so interested in it that I somehow departed far away from my home culture. Then after a while being here, I still love it so much. I love England, I love this life, and I love this culture, this mentality. But at the same time, I think I recognize more my roots to a healthy extent, to the extent of reading more about, listening to some Polish music every now and then, trying to keep in touch with the Polish language. So these little things to remind me where I'm from and what I'm proud of. I'm proud of being Polish, and I bet you're proud of being Ukrainian. Because that's important, that makes us who we
Exactly.
are. I was thinking what could be a motto of our, like the punchline of our conversation. And I have this idea that differences between people should only be appreciated and respected, to learn from one another, but not used as a weapon. Do you think?
And I think it almost similar as an illustration what you've just said. It's almost similar to the illustration of my negative space, when the difference between people actually creates the whole shape of this space between people, doesn't it? If people were so the same, it would be exactly the same. It wouldn't create any dynamic. That's what creates the dynamic, the difference. Yes, I think so.
Fantastic.
Beautiful, beautiful motto.
Thank you so much, Elena.
Thank you,
It was a
Konrad.
pleasure.
Thank you.